What is leadership? That is the big question that this whole project is over and that everyone is asking. What is leadership? What does it do? Like, what is leadership and what makes a good leader, right? So, for me, for me, I feel that a good leader is genuinely a leader who takes the time to understand their audience and can cater to their audience or the people that they're leading per se. So what do I mean by that, right? I think to be a leader, you have to be you have to have the ability to change yourself and lead in different styles. So for example, whenever I lead, right, I lead differently in the classroom than I do per se my job. So in the classroom, say I'm in a project, right? Whenever I'm leading in a group setting, I'm direct because it's a school project, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a direct leader if I'm leading in that instance. But at my job, it's more like, especially like whenever I'm training a new employee, my leadership style is not going to be like direct and firm. It's going to be more like understanding, explanatory, giving. So yeah, I think versatility, that's the word I was looking for. Versatility is an extreme leader. But I also think a leader is someone who has the ability to understand and listen and right their wrongs. That's a good leader. Anybody can really be a leader. You can lead anything. You can lead the line. You can lead so many different things. You can lead a nation. But a good leader is someone who's understanding and realizes that we're all human and we all have things that make us unique. We're all completely different. So it's important to be able to change that up and switch in between what you need. Now, as far as leaders who've inspired me, I've been lucky to have many leaders in my life, many impactful leaders that have genuinely made a difference and turned me into the person I am today. But the leader I'll mention, which actually I'm interviewing her in this next clip, her name is Tiara Jordan, and she is someone very near and dear to me. I did a fellowship for her for the summer after freshman year, and it really taught me so much on how to lead and the issues in St. Louis, the education system in St. Louis. And she's genuinely inspiring to me because throughout the month-long fellowship that I did under her, there wasn't a single time where she was just angry at her team or mad at her team. Like, she was always genuinely so nice. And you have to think, she's working with kids my age and adults, and she can change her leading style to fit the sector that she needs to. So I'm gonna let Miss Tiara take it from here and explain to you what she thinks a good leader is and her leadership style. So yeah. Oh,
Hi.
so thank you for letting me interview you today. I'll just let you introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Tiara Jordan Sutton. I'm the CEO and founder of Activate STL, which has now grown into Activate Missouri.
All right. So I'm just gonna ask you some questions today. So my first question is just kind of like explain more on your role, like in your organization.
Sure. So a little bit of background. So I used to be a principal and a teacher in the K-12 space. And so I went into advocacy based on the things that I kind of learned during my time as a principal and
Mhm.
a teacher. There were a lot of conversations and decisions that were being made for the students and families we served without including them in those
Mm,
conversations and hearing their perspectives and their needs and their ideas. And so when I left the K-12 space, I really had an idea. I'm like, someone needs to be ensuring that the voices of students and teachers and parents are heard at all levels. And so that's the founder part of my title. I actually
okay.
started the nonprofit back in 2021. And then the CEO role means I'm the chief executive officer. It just kind of means that you make all of the decisions. You kind of oversee the organization, make sure that it's in good standing, that you have your budget and all your financials together, and then you oversee all of the programs and outcomes and all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So kind of head seat in charge of all the things.
Okay, so that definitely sounds very big role, very, very big role, obviously. How
Yes.
like, with all that responsibility, how would you define your leadership style?
Yeah, I think it evolves over time.
Mhm.
So I got into leadership pretty young. I was 28 when I became a principal.
Oh,
I
wow.
I would think that was like my highest leadership role, I would say, when I turned 28, but I started as an administrator at about 25. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I will definitely say my leadership style at 25, kind of embarrassing. You learn as you grow. But when I was young, I would say that I emulated my leadership style based on other people that I had saw. And I
Mhm,
think the most important thing is to be authentic as a leader, right? So like
mhm.
you need to understand like what are your goals and what you need to push for, but you also need to understand what feels good to you. As a leader,
Right.
like, how do you want to treat people? How do you want to develop the culture within your organization or within your school? And then that could kind of drive your leadership style. So I would say today,
Mhm.
after some years and experience and reflecting, I would say I'm a human centered leader. I'm someone that understands that work is a part of your life, but it is not your entire life. And so it's important for me to check in about the other aspects of your life and also
Right.
remember as the boss that like you have a life outside of work, as you
Mhm,
should. And so I really try to be kind of understanding and flexible that like there's a lot of factors in life that you can't control.
mhm,
And so I'm really reasonable with the fact of like there are things that are not within your control. There are things that are within your
mhm.
control. And so I would say I'm really flexible and empathetic towards the
I
people
love that, yeah.
that I manage, and simultaneously, I'm very goal driven. So I'm always very clear about like what needs to get accomplished, what we need to do to get there, and kind of like set the expectations clearly. But
Mhm,
understand that we're all humans and things happen and people need empathy and support along the way to reaching those
mhm.
goals.
Yeah, that kinda leads us, like, into the next question, like, what or how do you handle it whenever your team isn't, like, fully aligned? Like, how would you handle that?
Yeah, I think you have to think about a couple of things, right? So, as a leader, first and foremost, like everything starts with you. So, you have to
Mhm,
do a little bit of self reflection and you're like, wait a minute, was I really clear?
mhm.
Did I provide the right level of support? Did I give them the resources they needed to execute whatever task? So,
Yeah.
I think it definitely starts with some reflection on your part. And then once you kind of reflect on what you maybe could have done differently, then you start to ask questions. I think the biggest thing as a leader is you don't go in accusing people. Like,
Mhm,
you didn't do this because of X, Y, and Z. You go in with questions. You're trying to understand. Like, this is
mhm,
how it was laid out. This is where we are today. Can you give me a little bit more information around like what's stalling the project or why we're not moving forward? So I
mhm,
definitely ask questions, but then you need to kind of restate the expectations and ask, like, what do you need from me so that we can get back on track and reach our goal?
mhm. Yeah. So I know like one really big thing with your job is like taking students or parents or whoever it is to go like speak at big events like how you had me at the Capitol for National Schools Week or even just like how you've had parents speak at board meetings and all that. So
Yeah.
like with you being a leader, how do you kind of decide like when you need to step into a certain situation and when to let like the others lead, like the kids or like the adults or whoever you're with?
That's a great question. I think it depends on the audience.
Mhm.
And I think it depends on the topic or the subject, right? So like
Mhm.
I'm very intentional about if I'm trying to like go and meet with a funder,
Mhm.
or if I'm trying to forge a partnership with another organization, that's typically me because for them,
Yeah.
they want to know like who am I giving my money to and do I trust you? And
Right.
that you're
Uh-huh.
gonna do right by that. And if I'm partnering with somebody, they want to be like, how will we work together? They need
Mhm.
to know who I am and how I run my organization. But a lot of the things that I'm doing, I'm trying to elevate the messaging and the voices of students, educators, and parents. And
Mhm.
so typically whether it's presenting at the Capitol, meeting with legislators, meeting with the State Board of Education, like you presented when we were trying to
Mhm.
open up a new school, those are spaces where I think it's important for them to hear from the people most
Mhm.
impacted by what's going on. And so I'm really strategic about who is the audience and then what is the
Yeah.
voice that needs to be most heard.
Okay, I really like that. So
Mhm.
I know like another big thing is like there's a lot of ups and downs, right? Because sometimes you're going and you're doing all this canvassing and everything and it doesn't work out how you want. And then sometimes there's really good moments. So
Yep.
how do you feel like you keep your team motivated like through those ups and downs and challenges?
That is a great question. You have to celebrate the small wins.
Mhm.
Like, everything is not gonna be, like, a huge, big win, so, like, you have to really pay attention to the small wins that happen every day. You have to pay attention to, like, when I have my team meetings, like, we always start with sharing something positive. "Tell me a win you had this week." I think as humans, naturally, our brains, focus on the negative way too much, and you almost have to
Yeah.
train yourself to be like, "What good happened today?" Like, it's not all bad.
Mhm.
And so I think it's important for me as the leader to provide opportunities within meetings to say, we're focusing on the positive. Like, we know that
Mhm.
the problems are going to come up and we need to solve those. But to start off our meeting, we're going to talk about what things went well and what things
Mhm.
that we can celebrate.
I love that. I love that so much. It's just I love your leadership style. Like even whenever I was under you, we had such a good time and the meetings were so great. So my last question
Yeah.
for you is like what advice would you give to future leaders? Like people like my age or even like young adults.
Yeah, I would say be true to you. I think the
Mhm.
most beautiful thing about leadership is that people will make it seem that leadership looks one way. Like,
Mhm.
a leader does this, 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 and this. That is absolutely not true. Like, you define your leadership. There's going to be goals, there's going to be metrics within your role that you need to reach, but the way that you get there, and to something you just say, the way that people feel along the journey
Mhm.
is a lot of your responsibility. Are you creating a positive, fun, motivating environment, or are people like, I don't want to go to work today, or like, I don't want to go to Miss Jordan's cohort today, like that's boring, she just tells us all the things that we're doing wrong, whatever the thing may be.
Mhm.
So, like, be you and figure out your authentic style as a leader, and don't let anybody tell you what that needs to look like, because if you try to emulate somebody else's style, people will know it
Right.
doesn't go over well. So it has to be true to you. And when people know that you're being authentic, they're more willing to follow you as a leader.
That's just like it's just I feel like you just speak so like powerful. Like I don't know. You're just really good at that. But thank you for letting
Yeah,
me interview.
of course.
All right. Ooh. Okay. Let me figure out how to stop the recording.